And to really explain how we're going to get science done, I'm really excited actually to introduce onto the stage our new Chief Scientist, Matt Brown, and our Chief Digital Officer, Rakhi Rajani. Please come and join us.
Thanks, Parker. All right. Welcome, Matt. Thank you for that, Parker. Welcome, Matt. My name is Rakhi Rajani. I'm the Chief Digital Officer here at Genomics England, and I'm very excited to welcome Professor Matt Brown, who is our new Chief Scientist. Joined us, I think this is week number 4, if that's right.
That's correct.
So you have all of the answers by now, I'm sure, right? So Matt, can you tell us a little bit about life before Genomics England? What were you up to, and what do you get up to outside of your research work?
Yeah, thanks, Rakhi. So look, I'm a clinician scientist by background. I trained originally in Australia, and then in 1994 my wife and I came to University of Oxford, where we then spent the next 12 years working at Wellcome Trust Centre for Human Genetics. We'd actually decided that we were going to spend 2 years there, but it was such an exciting environment for doing near-patient research in the UK that we ended up spending a lot longer than planned. The first few years of that were pretty bleak, as anybody who worked in common disease genetics at that time will remember. Not a lot of successes. But then we had the fortune of being involved in the Wellcome Trust Case Control Consortium and have the incredible experience of having a new technology come along that basically resolved the pathogenesis of a large number of human diseases. In 2005 we went back to Australia, to Brisbane, and there I continued to work on common and rare diseases, in particularly bone and immune-mediated diseases, but across a really broad range of different diseases. And I set up a genetic medical service and sequencing service in Brisbane that covered a lot of the east coast of Australia for cancer and rare diseases. And additionally, I spent roughly 20% of my time in China doing a similar thing in a provincial city in China called Wenzhou, setting up a very large sequencing facility there. And then two years ago, beginning of 2019, my wife and I came back to the UK to work at the Guy's and St Thomas's Biomedical Research Centre, where I was the director, which is a really exciting position at the hub of a really highly productive near-patient research facility in South London, before I came and joined GEL.
Super. So what are your core research interests? What were they and what are they right now?
Look, for all of my career I've researched rheumatological diseases. I'm a practicing rheumatologist, and I particularly work on the disease ankylosing spondylitis, which is a common form of inflammatory arthritis, and where genomics is really now pushing virtually all of the drug development that's going on in that disease. So that's particularly exciting. But I've actually had a very broad range of research experience across other neurological diseases. I've run large studies in motor neuron disease, infectious diseases. I've run a huge study in tuberculosis that's still going on in China, and a whole range of other common and rare diseases. Particularly, I've been involved in mapping a large number of skeletal diseases and then developing therapies based on that.
And tell us a little bit about the work that you've done in China, in Australia, over here and in other parts of the world. What have you learned from those experiences, and what do you hope that helps you bring to what it is that we're trying to do at Genomics England?
So what I think the underlying message is that actually research that's actually involving humans and is near human, and where you get partnerships between researchers and clinicians, is actually by far the most potent way of doing it. And so the capability in China that was unique was that I had a situation in a hospital which was truly engaged in making the most of their resource and putting funds into it to bring their university academics and hospital academics together, and that resulted in a really potent partnership. And that's one of the things I really like about Genomics England's model, that it's not a lending library type model. It's a model where, as Parker's just pointed out in his previous presentation, we're about producing, not only obviously the primary purpose of Genomics England is about service development and service delivery for the NHS, but on the research side it's a lot about partnership with industry and academia to make the most use of that to benefit patients, and that model is much more effective than working in isolation.
So tell us a bit more about, so as I said, 4 weeks, right? This is week
Yes.
4, and you have all the answers. So tell us where you think, or where you would like to focus in your first few months at Genomics England. What do you think are our key opportunities to make a difference and to deliver on what Parker has just been talking about?
Look, we have an amazing asset with the really good linkage with the NHS and the resulting excellent sort of clinical resources in rare diseases and cancer. And now we have a 3-year program ahead of us in cancer, rare diseases and diversity studies. We also are I'm coming into the role at a time when we've got a whole bunch of new microscopes coming down the line in terms of technology that will allow us to address all sorts of novel things that have been basically things that we've been dreaming about being able to look at previously but not been able to, which should be able to resolve a lot of the really complex issues in front of us. In addition to that, we're at a point where we're about to transition analysis from almost a cottage industry style analysis where, for example, in cancer, expert opinion largely drives how we transition variant annotation into clinical recommendations, where we know that we should be able to do much better than that if we have more sophisticated analytic methods, particularly bringing multimodal data together. And I think Genomics England is incredibly well positioned to drive research to develop that so that it can be used in clinical practice to enable more diagnosis for rare disease patients and for cancer patients, much better, more accurate personalised medicine.
And how do we leverage what else is happening in the world? So you talked about some of those activities. How do we leverage the science that's happening outside of Genomics England and bring that together with what we're doing to strengthen our impact?
Look, one of my big lessons out of Wellcome Trust Case Control Consortium was that you did much better as big, large coordinated teams where you leveraged the strength of the global research community rather than trying to keep things in-house and control things yourself. And so I'm really keen to ensure that Genomics England increases its level of engagement, particularly with the not only the commercial activity that Parker's talked about, but with the international academic community, where we can basically use thousands to tens of thousands of researchers to look at our data to do more out of it than we can ourselves.
Thank you for that, Matt. So we've heard about Matt, the clinician, the scientist, the researcher, all of those things. Who's Matt outside of those?
My wife would say Matt is work obsessed and not a very good cook. But you haven't even been to my house for dinner yet.
Just kidding. I've heard the stories.
Very good. No, look, outside of work, I love doing lots of things. COVID has unfortunately got in the way of being able to be with my family, which is frustrating, but I'm not the only person in that position. But pastimes-wise, I love sailing. So in fact, I spent quite a while building racing dinghies in Sydney before I actually decided to do medicine. It's been a passion throughout my life, and in fact, if my wife and I hadn't decided to come here in 2019, right now I'd be preparing to race with a friend of mine in a two-handed race that runs every 5 years from Melbourne to Osaka in Japan.
Oh my goodness, how long would that take?
So that's a long-term goal. It's about a 40-day race.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think we've got some sailors in the audience too.
Yes. So I think actually probably my biggest challenge living in Dulwich, which must be about the furthest place from the sea in the UK apart from landlocked Derbyshire, is working out how to get that back into my life.
How do you keep up with the sailing then from Dulwich?
I can't. That's the problem.
Okay, well, we'll figure that one out.
Yeah.
Matt, thank you very much for taking the time this morning.
Thanks, Rakhi.
And welcome again to Genomics England.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.